Let's get nuts.
That's right. Let's get nuts. Covering the Unbeatable Squirrel Girl deck tech that we're going to have right here. It's going to be a very nutty of an episode that you're going to end up having. And let's get nutty. This is going to be the Unbeatable Squirrel Girl. Costs 3 green and 1 for a 4/4 legendary creature. Well, obviously, because this is going to be your commander. And it has one question for you. Do you like squirrels? What you end up getting is whenever the Unbeatable Squirrel Girl enters or attacks, create a 1/1 green squirrel creature token. And then obviously the response if you're playing this deck is, I love squirrels! Costs 1 and 3 green to activate it. That's right, no tapping, no nothing. Just 4 mana to be able to do the ability of create X amount of 1/1 squirrel creature tokens, where X is the number of squirrels that you control. That's right, this could be an infinite engine that you can end up making a whole bunch of squirrels. Crazy amount of squirrels. And this deck definitely has some infinite combos that you can end up having, and there's ways that you can end up putting more in there. So with that being said, let's go over what we end up having here. So I wanted to create a deck that has a whole bunch of the comic book art sets inside this. And that's what we end up having here. We have a whole bunch of comic book art and other cool art, such as like this Arachnogenesis, where we end up having the Todd McFarlane's version of Spider-Man. But we don't just stop there. You end up having a whole bunch of different art that you can end up seeing that we have. I also tried including art. Oh, see, there's a Beastmaster. That's from Avatar. Art that would be coming over from other comic book panels or other comic book areas. So with that being going over with it, let's dive into the deck. Let's go over the most boring part right out of the get-go so we can get that out of the way. Beseedrew, who endures. This is one of those things that can end up discarding this card, and we can destroy an artifact, enchantment, or a non-basic land an opponent controls. That player may search their library for a land card with a basic type, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. This causes 1 card less to activate for each legendary creature you control. So this is another way to be able to destroy something that's going to be very, very, very needed that we end up having. Cavern of Souls ends up making it our squirrels, because we normally put this on squirrels, so we can end up making sure we have an uncounterable Squirrel Girl. This land enters, we choose a creature type. Obviously, I just said we're going to put squirrels, but you have a bunch of different ways that you can end up doing it. It taps for a colorless, or it taps, add 1 mana of any color, spend this mana only to cast creature spells of the chosen type, and that spell can't be countered. That's right, forget you, blue. You can't counter this. So this is the big thing about this. We're mono green. So technically, we should probably be running a forest instead of this. But I had this command tower just sitting around, and it's too perfect for the deck. Command tower, if you don't know what it does, it taps for 1 mana of any color of your commander's identity. So when you're a mono color deck, this is not the best card to be having. However, flavor-wise, this is the perfect card for this deck. We have the Daily Bugle with Spider-Man right there. Dryad Arbor is definitely going to be something that we can end up tutoring out to ramp a little bit. It's also a creature, so beware. It's going to have some sickness unless you have a few different cards that's in this deck. Evolving Wild is a way to be able to get land into the graveyard. Favorite Passage is another way to be able to get more lands in there. Forest, I went into the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles because personally that's my favorite superhero ones that we've had so far. Fountain Port opens up the avenue to be able to sacrifice a creature or sacrifice a token to draw a card. We could, in a desperate thing, we could pay 3, tap it, pay 1 life, and get a fish, or you could pay 4 to create a treasure token. You have a bunch of different ways that you can end up going with that, and that's where you got different options. And Commander, you love options. Monster Rock Bridge comes at tap, but has Hideaway 4, where we get to look at the top 4 cards and put one of those underneath there and pay it for, or pay a green, tap this, and play the exile card without paying its mana cost if we have a power of 10 or greater. Good chance that we could end up doing that. Nykthos, Shrine to Nyx, has a tap, add 1 colorless, or we could pay 2, tap it, choose a color, add amount of mana equal to the devotion of that color. Your devotion and color number and mana symbols that are in mana causes to pyramids that you control. So here's the thing about devotion. Let's look over for Squirrel Girl for instance. So we'll put the brakes on that and use Squirrel Girl. So if we're having Nykthos and we're paying that to get this, and we just have Squirrel Girl on the battlefield, just Squirrel Girl, we'll end up getting 3 green because she has a devotion of 3. Great way to be able to ramp up and get a whole bunch of mana that we're looking forward to be able to play. With Squirrel Girl, we want to make sure you have 4 mana to be able to activate this ability many different times. So, right back at it. Nykthos is a great way. Oak Hollow Village is another land that we can end up having. Tap for a colorless, tap, pay or add a green, spend this mana only to cast creature spells, or you can pay a green, tap it, put a +1/+1 counter on each frog, rabbit, raccoon, or squirrel that entered the battlefield this turn. That's right, we're putting it on the squirrels. Rogue's Passage makes it unblockable. If we pay 4, tap it, we can make a creature unblocked this turn. We can pay for it, tap it, and target creature can't be blocked this turn. So shenanigans to be able to not make sure that our stuff's unblockable, but can also politics it and make it so that other people's stuff is unblockable. Terramark of Expanse is again something else to be able to put in the graveyard to be able to use for other things. 3 Tree City is the tribal version of Nykthos, where when it enters, we choose a creature type, tap it, we could end up getting a colorless, or it could pay 2, tap it, and add amount of mana equal to the number of the creatures that we control of that said chosen type. So if we're putting in squirrels and we have a whole bunch of squirrels, we can end up getting a bunch of more mana. Vibrant Cityscape is another land that we can end up having for the graveyard. Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth, ends up making sure that we fix for the green. And now we're going over into some other hidden tech that we can end up talking about. So that was the lands. It was pretty self-explanatory, pretty simple. Forest-wise, we have it at 18 lands, and we have 33 lands all together. So with that being said, let's slide on over and go over our sorceries that we have. For now, Devastation allows us to look either to our graveyard or our library for a card that we're looking for. Plus, if you have a whole bunch of mana, dump it into this and we can end up getting it. If it's 10 or more, creatures get +X/+X and gain haste until end of turn. So that means if we make an infinity or a bazillion squirrels, we tap for X, where we have 10 or more, they will be able to attack, and you can end up killing the board pretty much right there on the spot. It's a sorcery version or a tutor version of Cradle Hoof that can get Cradle Hoof. Green Sun Zenith is another way, but it's also renewable because once we go looking for that, we can shuffle Green Sun Zenith back into our library. Triumph the Hordes, or in this case, Mutables United, costs 2 and 2 green. Until end of turn, creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain trample and infect. And if you don't know about infect is if they get 10 or more counters, infect counters on them, they lose the game. They're dead. So you only have to do 10 damage with that, so that's a good way of making sure. Also, obviously, we went with the comic book art because we wanted to go with the comics. Natural Order is another way that we could tutor out anything that we're looking for. Costs us 2 and 2 green. As an additional cost to casting this, we have to sacrifice a green creature. We have a bunch of 1/1 squirrel tokens, most likely. So we can sacrifice that, search our library for a green creature, put it on the battlefield, then shuffle your library. More ways to get hoofed. Nature's Lore. I ended up going with the one that ends up having the Black Panther and Baby Groot on it. It costs us 1 green and 1. We get to search our library for our forest card and put that onto the battlefield, then shuffle. Overwhelming Stampede. We ended up going with some crazy Black Panther art that we're coming over with that. Costs us 2 green and 3 until end of turn. Creatures you control gain trample and get +X/+X, where X is the greatest power among creatures that you control. 3 visits. Costs us 1 and a green, where we get to search our library for a forest card and put it onto the battlefield. Notice it doesn't come into play tap, so it's amazing. This is a secret layer version of that, and it fits right into what I wanted to do with the deck. Arachnogenesis was exactly the copy that we ended up, was the example that we ended up showing earlier, where you end up paying 2 and a green. It's an instance, so we're diving into the instance, where we get to create X amount of 1/2 green spider creature tokens with reach, where X is the number of creatures attacking you. Prevent all combat damage that will be dealt this turn by non-spider creatures. So it's a good fog effect that we're going to end up having, and most likely they're not going to end up having spiders, so this is going to be able to make us have a whole bunch of spiders afterwards. Return of the Wild Speaker, or in this case with the Avatar version, is Earth Rumble Triumph. Costs us 4 and a green, where we get to choose one. Draw cards equal to the greatest power among non-human creatures that you control. We have a whole bunch of squirrels. We have some things. Big thing about this, though, Squirrel Girl is a no-go because she's a spider human hero. So she's technically a human, so that ends up not working. And this little buff right here, the non-human creatures you control get +3/+3 until end of turn, won't be triggering on her. This awesome Hulk art of Force of Vigor costs us 2 and a green if you pay that mana cost, because we also have that option. If it's not your turn, you may exile a green creature card from your hand rather than pay the mana cost. Destroy up to 2 target artifacts or enchantments. That's right, we got a little bit of destruction and it's awesome Hulk art. Then we have Beast Within. This is a little bit different art because it's reskin with the Grim Fate. Costs us 1 green and 2. Destroy a target permanent. It controller creates a 3/3 green beast creature token. So it's an awesome thing that you end up seeing these epic arts that you can end up having out of these. Like right down here, you can see the artist getting registered and everyone that's involved. Heroic Intervention costs us 1 and a green. Permanents you control gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. I had to go with this crazy, I believe this is Secret War art, where we end up having the Hulk picking up everything. It's just amazing. So this is one of those cards that I would honestly say that you can end up cutting. The only reason that I have it in the deck is because it ends up, has a killer comic book art. Hunter's Insight costs us 2 and 1 green. Choose a target creature you control. Whenever target creature deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, you draw that many cards. It's card draw, but it's definitely something that could end up being replaced because it's really, really limited and it's a one-time effect. Silk Guard is another one of those that I wanted because it's a comic book art. It could end up being replaced for something else, but that's up to you. Silk Guard is where we pay X and 1 green. We get to put a +1/+1 counter. We get to put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to X amount of target creatures. Auras, equipment, modified creatures that you controlled gain hexproof until end of turn. Equipment, auras you control, and counters are modifications. So it's a good way to be able to protect your stuff, and especially like protecting like Squirrel Girl and making her a little bit bigger. Entangled is a prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn. Each attacking creature doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. Costs 1 and a green. It's a great fog effect. I would say this is probably the best fog effect that we have. And it has some killer Rambles art that's over there. Worldly Tutor is another way we can end up tutoring more stuff. I think I wanted to go tutor heavy. That way you can make sure you get those combos that you're looking for. Search your library for a creature card, reveal it, and then shuffle your library and put that on top for a price of 1 green mana. Arcane Signet, another thing that I ended up picking up because it has the comic book art. And, well, we all know what this does is you pay 2, and then you can end up tapping it for mana of your commander's identity. Yes, we're in green, so there's probably better ramp that we can end up going with, but then you don't have Captain America's key card. Idol of Oblivion. So this is of something that's going to be really good with our token generation because you can tap it, draw a card, activate this if you created a token this turn. Or if it comes down to it and we really need to make a creature, we can pay 8, tap it, sacrifice it, and create a 10/10 colors and drowsy creature token. I have to say, mainly we're going to keep it in for this first one right here. This second one is panic switch. Patchwork Banner. This card puts in a little bit work because this makes it Squirrel Girl has that little big booty that goes over with it, and any kind of burn spells or stuff like that makes it a little bit tougher. Because when this artifact enters, choose a creature type. We're going to end up choosing squirrels. Creatures you control get +1/+1. And then it also has tap for 1 mana of any color. Soul Ring, the good old classic, pay 1. And it taps for 2. Obviously, we went with the Spidey art. 1,000-Year Elixir is another way we can end up making sure that we end up having activating abilities as though they have haste. And then it also can pay 1 and untap a target creature. And here's another win con that we can end up having. Let's say we have only half the combo, but we have a whole bunch of squirrels that we have out there. Well, we can end up tapping those squirrels, and Throne of the God Pharaoh, which costs 2 mana, has it where at the beginning of your end step, each opponent loses life. That's right, it is life loss and not damage to the number of tapped creatures that you end up controlling. So that's right, so all these creatures that we have tapped, all of our opponents takes that much damage. So let's say we have 20 squirrels and we have them tapped. Each opponent is going to end up taking 20 damage. That's a pretty good burn spell, especially for 2 mana. Beastmaster's Ascension, so we're in the enchantment realm now, is whenever a creature attacks, you may put a quest counter on this enchantment. Oh, it costs 2 and 1 green. As long as this enchantment has 7 or more quest counters on it, creatures you control get +5/+5. Makes our wee little squirrels into bonafide squirrels. Crypt of Right allows us to have our creatures tap for 1 mana of any color. Another comic book art with Defense of the Heart costs 1 green and 3. At the beginning of your upkeep, if an opponent controls 3 or more creatures, sacrifice this enchantment, search your library for up to 2 creature cards, and put them onto the battlefield. Then shuffle. More tutor effects, and it allows us to be able to surprise combo off as long as the opponent has 3 or more creatures. Doubling Season. That's right, we have the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comic book art that fits right perfectly into this. And Doubling Season is amazing. It's expensive though. Not just cost-wise, mana value-wise, but oh my goodness, it would be nice if you can end up having it. If an effect would create 1 or more tokens you control, it creates twice that many instead. If an effect would put 1 or more counters on permanents you control, put twice that many of counters on that permanents instead. What does that mean? That means we double the tokens that we make, and we double the counters that we end up putting on. Elven Chorus is where we can end up looking at the top card of our library at any time for a cost of 3 and a green, and then we may cast creature spells from the top of our library. Creatures you control have tap, add 1 mana of any color. With all those tokens, we can make a whole bunch of mana. Garrick's Uprising ends up giving our creatures trample. That's the big reason that we have it. But if we have a creature that has a power of 4 or more, we draw a card. And then whenever we play a creature that has a power of 4 or more, we draw a card. Squirrel Girl, right at 4. Perfect! Growing Rights of Icklemok is a pretty fun card. It costs us 2 and a green. And then when it enters, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest at the bottom of your library in any order. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 4 or more creatures, transform it. What does it flip over into? Icklemok, Cradle of the Sun. Tap, add 1 green mana. Or here's the big thing. Tap, add 1 green for each creature that you have. This is a fixed Gaia's Cradle. I don't have Gaia's Cradle in here. And I wouldn't have that because that's stupidly expensive. Oh. Parallel Lives with this awesome art that we end up having has it where if effect may create 1 or more tokens under your control, it creates twice that many creature tokens, or it creates twice that many tokens instead. Double the tokens, double the trouble. Primal Vigor costs us 4 and 1 green with this awesome Hulk versus the Thing art. If 1 or more tokens that will be created, twice that many creature tokens will be created instead. If you put up 1 or more +1/+1 counters on a creature, twice that many instead. So there's a bunch of doubling that we have in here. When we make 1 token, we make a bunch of tokens. And we end up having that design and worked out perfectly because there's a bunch of comic book art that actually fulfills with that. Rancor, this is another one that you may end up cutting and may not end up being in the final form of it, at least until I get to play it. Rancor, it costs us 1 green mana. Enchanted creature. Enchanted creature gets +2/+0 and has trample. Whenever this aura is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, return it to its owner's hands. So that means if the creature that has this dies, it ends up bopping back over to our hands. I put it in here because of mainly the comic book art, but it's nice to have that little buff of that +2/+0 and trample for 1 mana. Song of the Dryads is good removal that we end up having, where Enchanted Permanent is a colorless forest instead. So it's important to say that this ends up going onto those commanders. Unless they have a ways to sacrifice that commander stays out there as a land. That's right, that ends up shutting down that commander, that deck that's all around the commander, and just shuts it completely down. Steely Resolve costs us 1 and a green. Again, with the comic book art that we end up going with, as this enchantment enters, choose a creature type. Creatures of the chosen type has Shroud. They can't be targeted with spells or abilities. So with Shroud, this works on both ways. We can't target it, but they can't target it. So it's a good way to be able to protect it. It's important whenever we have the option of choosing a creature type or choosing squirrels, because that hits our commander and also hits a big old buffs that we can end up going with. Sylvan's Anthem. Sylvan Anthem causes 2 green, and green creatures you control get +1/+1. And then whenever we play a green creature, whenever we play a green creatures, or whenever it enters the battlefield under our control, we get to scry 1. That means we look at the top card of our library. If we like it, we keep it on top. If we don't, we ship it to the bottom. So I know this is a full art that doesn't have any text on it. I'm planning on keeping an extra copy that's going to be in there, but it is Utopia Sprawl, costs 1 green, and it's an enchanted forest, so it has to go onto a forest. But we get to choose a color. Whenever we tap the enchanted forest for mana, its control adds 1 additional mana of that chosen color. So we're going to put green, so this is going to end up tapping that forest for 2 green. So for instance, this is great to be able to play on turn 2, because you're not falling behind because you end up playing something. So you can keep on going over with it. Or if you happen to have it in your hand, turn 1, you can end up playing it, but you won't get any immediate value that would be coming off this. And now we're back over to the lands. So let's review. We covered lands, sorceries, instances, artifacts, and enchantments. Oh, you know what that means? What we have left is battles. That's right, we have battles. No, we have creatures too, but we'll end up getting to that. We have the Invasion of Ikora. Costs X and 2 green. And then as it enters, we get to search our library and or graveyard for a non-human creature card with a value of X or less and put it onto the battlefield. If you search your library this way, shuffle. So this is another tutor like Finale of Devastation. Gives us options to be able to go through our deck or go through the graveyard. So like that big Cradle Hoof that we already did and they already killed, we can end up bringing that back from our graveyard or we can end up tutoring it out. Spoiler alert, I know I said it a lot, but Cradle Hoof's in this deck. However, he does have an other side if we end up beating them down for that battle. For each non-creature or non-human creature that you control, you may have the creature assign combat damage as though it wasn't blacked. Because we have Zagartha, Apex of Ikora. Has reach and it's an 8/8. Battles, you end up selecting an opponent to be able to block it, to defend it, to make sure it doesn't end up dying. But if it does, it ends up flipping. So the part that we're going to be going into, we have 29 creatures that's going to be going over with it. And at the end of this video, I'll end up breaking down what the numbers are that we go along with it. Allosaurus Shepherd costs 1 green. And this spell can't be countered. Green spells that you control can't be countered. Those are the main reasons that we have into it. It's a human elf shaman, but it also has it where we can pay 6 at the end of turn, or until the end of turn. Each elf creature that you control has a base power and toughness of a 5/5 and becomes a dinosaur in additional to its other types. Beast Whisperer is a good old card draw for 4 mana, 2 green and 2, and then whenever you cast a creature spell, draw a card with 2/3 body. Birds of Paradise costs us 1 mana, 1 green mana specifically, but it has flying and allows us to end up having more rampant. Deathroot Apothecary costs us 2 and a green for a 3/3 squirrel that's going to be crazy. Has Toxic too, so whenever a player is dealt combat damage, they gain 2 poison counters. With a player of 10 or more, they end up losing the game. So, poison counters, like I said, that's with Infect. Infect, it also ends up spilling over with that. Whenever this creature enters the battlefield, you and a target opponent each create a treasure token. Whenever an opponent sacrifices a non-creature token, that player gets 2 poison counters. So those big treasure-heavy tokens, those big treasure-heavy decks that end up playing a bunch of treasures and ends up cracking them, well, if they crack 5 treasures, they die. That's right. This is a punishing effect that they end up having, and it's a great way that goes over with it. And it's supposed to, and specifically, this is for opponents, so we can still end up using our treasures. Chomping Changeling costs us 2 and a green. It's a shapeshifter, so it's technically a green because it's a 4. It's a squirrel. It's also a bear. But we're talking about squirrels right now. When it enters, we get to destroy up to 1 target artifact or enchantment. Circle of the Dreams Druid costs 3 green mana for a 2/1. But the big thing is tap it, add 1 green for each creature that we control. It's a Guideless Cradle on an elf. Crafting Drawbridge ends up giving us the ability to tap it to gain haste to all of our creatures. And the classic Cradle Hoof. Any green deck that ends up running a bunch of tokens ends up running this guy. This guy is a must. This is the peanut butter and jelly of any classic deck. You have elves, you run Cradle Hoof. And now you have squirrels, you run Cradle Hoof. Cradle Hoof is amazing, but what it does, it costs 8 mana, 3 green and 5 for 5/5. Okay, it has haste. Alright. When this creature enters, creatures you control gain trample. Alright, okay. But here's the kicker. And get plus X until end of turn, where X is the number of creatures that you control. If you have 20 squirrels, all your creatures are going to gain 20 or plus 20, and have haste, and have trample, and make it game over. Epic Mystic allows us ramp. Enduring Vitality allows us to be able to have our creatures tap for one mana of any color. If it dies, it becomes an enchantment. So you got to get 2 uses out of it. Essence Warden allows us to gain life for all those creatures that we end up playing. Beware for the Rakdos Charm. That can be dangerous. Fanatic of Ronus costs us 1 and a green. It taps for 1 green unless it's ferocious. If we have a power of 4 or greater, if we play our commander, we can end up having that ferocious, and it taps for 4 green instead. Memorial Speaker costs us 2 and a green, and when this creature enters, you may discard a card. If you do, search your library for a creature card, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle. Also has the ability where you pay 1 and untap another target permanent. So like if we're needing to untap our Nykthos, for instance, that's allowing us to be able to do that. It has a 2/4 body. Feyhorn Elves costs us 1 green for a mana ramp. Honored Drag Leader costs us 2 and a green for a 1/1, but it's not going to stay at 1/1. Has trample, and then when it enters, we have to put a +1/+1 counter onto each other squirrel and or food you control. Whenever another squirrel or food you control enters, put a +1/+1 counter on Honor Dryad or Dryer Leader. So he gets bigger as we play more squirrels. Ivy Lane Denizen costs us 3 and 1 green. And it's a 2/3 body, and it is part of an infinite combo that we have in the deck. Whenever another green creature enters, put a +1/+1 counter on a target creature. So let's take a moment and go with the other part of that real quick, and that is going to be Scurry Oak. It has evolved whenever a creature has a greater power or toughness than this creature, put a +1/+1 counter. Whenever a +1/+1 counter or counters are put onto this creature, you may create a 1/1 green squirrel token. So the big thing is you have the Denizen and you have the Scurry Oak, and you need to play someone that's green, a green creature, and start triggering that, because each time you end up having that, Denizen kicks, puts a counter on Oak. Oak kicks, makes a squirrel. Oh, Denizen sees that squirrel, you put it on the Scurry Oak, and you keep on going, and you have that infinite combo where you're making infinite amount of squirrels. It's crazy. Now get back over to that. Jara, Friend of the Forest. Tokens you control have tap at a green mana. Caramancho's Acolyte costs 3 and 4. Well, 3 and 1 green. A total of 4. It's a 1/4. Tap, add 1 green mana equal to the Devotion of Green. Again, the Devotion is playing a big role into this deck. Llanowar Elves, more mana dorks. Magus of the Order, we can sacrifice this creature and another green creature. We get to search our library for a green creature card and put it onto the battlefield. More shenanigans. Here's another one that I would possibly cut. It's in here because of the comic book art that we end up having. Araska, the Endless Webs, or this is the Master Weaver Web Protector. Whew! Costs us 2 and 2 green. Reach, and whenever an opponent casts an instant or sorcery spell, create a 1/2 green spider creature token with reach. Metallic Mimic, again, comic book art. This be a maybe cut, where Metallic Mimic has it where when it comes into play, we get to choose a creature type. Creatures of this chosen type, or this creature gains that creature type. So if we call squirrels, you'll end up becoming a squirrel, and then each creature that you control of that chosen type enters with an additional +1/+1 counter. Ornithosfang is a way to draw cards. And, oh my goodness, it has Death Touch whenever you're attacking. So attacking creatures you control have Death Touch. Awesome. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. More draw. Prosperous Innkeeper is a way to gain more life, and you get a treasure token when it first comes into play. Scurry Oak, we already broke down. Shang-Chi, Master of Kung Fu, costs 1 in the green, and you may activate abilities of creatures that you control as though as they have haste. Tap, add 2 green or 2 mana of one color to only activate abilities of creature sources. This is a tutor, but it's also a ramper of the Thornvault Forager. And now the big reason that we're putting in those fetch lands is to be able to set up for Forage, where we can end up tapping it, Forage, add 2 mana in combination of colors. And so we can end up exiling 3 cards from your library or graveyard and sacrifice food or sacrifice food. Tippy Toe, terrific partner. You gotta have Tippy in here. You have Squirrel Girl, you gotta have Tippy. If you would create 1 or more tokens, instead create those tokens an additional food token. It's an artifact to pay 2 life and gain. At the beginning of your end step, if you gain life this turn, draw a card. Toski, another squirrel. Amazing squirrel though. Can't be countered, indestructible, and attacks each combat if able. Whenever this creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Whew. Whew. That's a lot to be breaking down. There's a lot of infinite combos that you can end up digging out. Like the main one I was saying that you end up picking up would be your Ivan Dennison with the Scurry Oak. Big things that you want to end up having is where you end up making it so your creatures could end up tapping for mana and then also having haste. So that opens up to the avenues. If you're not a crazy person like me where you wanted to be going comic book art, there's some ways that you can end up going with it. First off, more tutors. I would suggest Nature's Rhythm and Court of Calling as a couple good solid tutors that you can end up having. You want haste. Haste is going to be a big thing. So what you can end up having is Coordinate Crossroads. This works across the thing because it's a world enchantment. I don't have it in here. I should have it in here. But the thing is that it's obviously it's $47. So I don't have that kind of value. Another combo that you can run that's super expensive money-wise is Squirrel Nest, which is the cheap part of that, where Enchanted Land has tap, put a 1/1 green squirrel token into play. But the expensive part is this Earthcraft, because this is on the reserve list. This is something that's never going to be, well, I don't think it's on the reserve. Oh, it is. It says it right there. It says it right here. We're on the reserve list. So it's never going to be reprinted. Tap an untapped creature that you control, untap a basic land. So you put that enchantment on a basic forest and you can untap it and you can create infinite squirrels. It's crazy. But as you can see, it's $287. And if I can't afford Coordinate Crossroads, which is around $50, I definitely can't afford this guy. Also, you can end up having more removal with Kendra's Transformation. Another one I'm thinking about is Springleaf Promenade, because you can end up creating a bunch of shapeshifters, which could become squirrels as well, and they can tap for any mana. So it's a good way that we can end up going with that. And if you're going over with it instead of having the comic book stuff, you need to have some kind of buffs. You need some ways to be able to end this game with it. So you have like Banner of Kinship, Coat of Arms, and Sword of the Squeaks being solid adds to it. And if you're going a whole bunch of squirrels, you have a whole bunch of different routes that you can end up going. You end up having the Deep Forest Horns, which I know isn't a squirrel itself, but it makes squirrels. Nut Collector gives a bonus to the squirrels. Regal Force is more ways to be able to draw cards. And funny enough, you have Spider Ham, friend of the squirrels, because it gives you +1/+1 to the squirrels. That's right. Squirrel can have its own mob with scurry of the squirrels. And you do have a lord and Squirrel Sovereign. And you also have Adopted Automaton, which could be any tribal. So you can end up getting +1/+1 that goes over with that. And the final, if you need more ways to be able to tap your creatures for mana, you also have Supportive Parents. So let's slide on back. Shut that thing, bring that up. So, how nutty is that for you? This has the nuts. We're going over. We're going crazy. We're able to find ways to be able to do it. Unbeatable Squirrel Girl has been a whole bunch of different people. It's being a whole bunch of different people. It's being Galactus and oh my goodness, I believe Doom, a bunch of different characters. Ryan North ended up having a solid series, is what I've been told. I'm diving into that right now because I kind of want to make a few proxies in this deck of stuff like Cradle Hoof Behemoth and stuff like that, where it has original art of that on the proxies, because I think it'd be kind of cool to have this themed out with that. So, like I said, I ended up calling this Let's Get Nuts. Not just because of the crazy Batman quote that you ended up hearing right off the get-go, but it's definitely a nutty deck, and it's definitely something that could end up being fun. So I want you to let me know what you think of it. Any upgrades? Have you played this? Have you played Unbeatable Squirrel Girl? Let us know down in the comments down below. And as always, thank you for watching, and until next time, we'll see you later.